The debate hall buzzed with a strange mix of nerves and anticipation, the kind that always seemed to hang in the air when the cameras were rolling. Rows of studio lights glared down on the glossy stage, and the audience sat in near silence, leaning forward as though afraid to miss even a second of the exchange. Tonight wasn't just any policy discussion, it was one of those rare moments when two sharply different worlds collided live, in real time, with no chance of editing, no script to hide behind. Rick Scott, seasoned and calculating, sat with his familiar polished composure. His tailored suit was crisp, his smile controlled, his every gesture practiced after years in front of cameras. Across from him, Jasmine Crockett radiated something completely different. She wasn't polished in the same stiff way, she was alive, vibrant, with a kind of raw energy that made people feel like she was speaking with them, not at them. That authenticity, the very thing her supporters adored, was what irritated her opponents most. The first half of the program had moved smoothly, both sides trading the usual blows on policy, economy, and healthcare. The moderators asked their questions in even tones, and both Scott and Crockett gave the expected answers. But the air grew heavier with each passing minute. Scott leaned in more, his interruptions sharpening, his voice dropping to a patronizing lilt. Jasmine, meanwhile, remained steady, letting him talk, letting him believe he was steering the conversation. Then came the moment. The moderator barely finished a question on poverty relief before Jasmine began outlining the challenges facing working-class families in her district. She spoke about mothers choosing between rent and groceries, seniors rationing medicine because costs had skyrocketed, and young people juggling two jobs just to afford basic needs. The audience nodded, some clapping softly, her words resonating with lived reality. But Rick Scott wasn't moved. Instead, he leaned back in his chair with a smirk, tilting his head as if he were listening to a child tell a fanciful story. When Jasmine paused to take a breath, he jumped in, cutting her off mid-sentence with a dismissive wave of his hand. With all due respect, he began, in a tone dripping with anything but respect, we hear the same stories every election cycle. People like you love to talk about struggles, but talking isn't doing. You're more concerned about going viral on Twitter than actually delivering results. You've become more of a performer than a policymaker. The jab was sharp, deliberate. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a personal insult designed to undercut her credibility. The studio grew uncomfortably quiet, the kind of silence that feels louder than any noise. Some audience members shifted in their seats, others gasped softly, recognizing the dismissive cruelty in his words. Even the moderators froze, glancing at Jasmine as if to gauge whether they needed to step in. For a moment, Jasmine didn't move. Her hands rested lightly on the desk, her face calm, her eyes fixed on Scott. But there was something in her expression, a quiet fire, the kind that promised she wasn't about to let this slide. Slowly, she leaned forward, her posture deliberate, not rushed, as if she had all the time in the world. Her voice, when it came, wasn't raised. It was calm, almost gentle, yet every syllable carried weight. Senator Scott, she began, her tone steady and unshaken, you say I talk too much, but at least I'm talking about people who can't afford for us to sit here and play political games. You call it performing, I call it accountability. And if shining a light on their struggles makes me flashy in your eyes, then I'll gladly wear that title. The audience broke into applause, clapping louder now, relieved almost, as though they'd been waiting for her to push back. Cameras caught Scott's smile falter ever so slightly, his jaw tightening. He hadn't expected her to meet his insult with poise instead of anger. But Jasmine wasn't done. She leaned in closer, her words sharper now, every line landing like a clean strike. Headlines don't feed families. Hashtags don't pay rent. The people I fight for aren't looking for a show, they're looking for results. And maybe, just maybe, if more politicians stopped dismissing their pain as performances, and started listening, we wouldn't be having the same conversations decade after decade. The studio erupted in applause this time, louder and longer than before. The moderators let it roll, sensing they were witnessing something bigger than a debate talking point. Rick Scott tried to interject, his lips parting as if to seize control again, but the moment was gone. The audience was with Jasmine now, their energy undeniable. Online, the clip had already started spreading, hashtags bubbling up like sparks catching dry wood, hashtag Crockett clapback, hashtag Rick Scott owned, hashtag Jasmine unfiltered. And as Jasmine sat back, calm as ever, it was clear to everyone in the room, her words weren't just a rebuttal. They were a statement, one that would echo far beyond that debate stage. The debate wrapped up with polite handshakes and rehearsed smiles, but everyone in the studio knew the night belonged to Jasmine Crockett. The moment the cameras cut, audience members leaned toward one another, whispering about what they had just seen. Even the moderators, who prided themselves on neutrality, exchanged quick glances that betrayed their awareness of the clip destined to dominate social media within hours. Outside the studio, it was already happening. Viewers at home had clipped the exchange on their phones and uploaded it in real time. By the time Jasmine's team walked her backstage, her phone buzzed non-stop, messages, mentions, notifications flooding in. The hashtags were trending nationwide, hashtag Crockett clapback at #1, followed closely by hashtag Rick Scott owned. Political analysts tweeted frantically, influencers stitched the clip into reaction videos, and ordinary Americans flooded the comments with applause emojis, fire icons, and words like, "Finally someone said it." Rick Scott, meanwhile, tried to maintain his usual image of calm control. His staff hustled him out of the building, murmuring that the press would be waiting. He nodded, but his tight jaw betrayed irritation. To him, debates were about commanding the stage, projecting authority, and dismissing opponents with well-timed barbs. He wasn't used to those barbs turning into boomerangs. And yet, Jasmine had taken his insult and transformed it into a weapon, striking back with precision in front of millions. The morning after, the story dominated the news cycle. Headlines screamed across websites. Crockett dismantles Scott in viral debate moment, Jasmine Crockett's calm clapback captures nation, Rick Scott outshined in live exchange. On television, political commentators replayed the clip endlessly, breaking down her composure, her tone, her choice of words. Even those who disagreed with her politics admitted that the moment had been powerful. Talk shows latched on quickly. On one popular morning program, the hosts leaned back in their chairs and chuckled as they replayed Scott's smirk, freezing the frame right before Jasmine leaned in. That look, one host laughed, is the exact second he realized he made a mistake. The audience roared, and the hosts went on to praise her ability to stay calm under pressure. For Jasmine, the response was overwhelming. Her office was inundated with calls, not just from journalists but from ordinary citizens thanking her for saying what they'd been feeling for years. Messages poured in from single mothers, factory workers, veterans, and students. They all echoed the same sentiment, "You spoke for us." That night, Jasmine posted a short video to her supporters. She didn't gloat or mock Rick Scott. Instead, she thanked people for their messages and reminded them that the fight wasn't about viral moments, but about real lives. Her tone was humble, her smile warm, and she ended by saying, "If my words gave you strength, then let's use that strength to make change together." The video was shared just as widely as the clapback itself, reinforcing her image not just as a fighter, but as someone grounded in purpose. Rick Scott, on the other hand, faced a tougher road. His press team scrambled to reframe the narrative, issuing statements that painted Jasmine's response as grandstanding. He tried to appear unfazed in interviews, insisting that debates were about substance, not show. But the damage was already done. Every time he spoke, clips of Jasmine's retort played in the background, her words echoing louder than anything he said. Behind the scenes, Scott's allies whispered about the misstep. Some felt he had underestimated her, assuming she would falter under pressure. Others worried that his dismissive tone toward a younger, outspoken woman of color had reinforced negative perceptions about him. Political strategists warned that the exchange would linger, shaping how voters remembered him long after the debate. And linger it did. Over the next week, comedians wove the moment into their routines, late-night hosts delivered monologues about it, and memes flooded every corner of the internet. One showed Jasmine calmly sipping tea while Scott fumed, captioned, "When you stay calm but still win the argument." Another displayed the side-by-side of his smirk and her response with the caption, "Guess who's going viral tonight?" But beyond the humor, there was something deeper. People who usually tuned out of politics found themselves replaying the clip, sharing it, talking about it with friends and family. For many, Jasmine's composure felt like a refreshing antidote to the chaos of political theater. She wasn't shouting or grandstanding, she was steady, sharp, and unapologetically real. Weeks later, as the debate faded into memory, one thing remained clear: the moment had shifted the conversation. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a rising voice anymore, she was a force, someone who could take an insult, turn it around, and make it echo far louder than the person who delivered it. And for Rick Scott, the night that was supposed to showcase his authority had instead immortalized his miscalculation. It wasn't just a clapback. It was a turning point, one destined to be replayed, remembered, and retold as the night a single sentence changed the balance of the debate stage.